Yo,
Good evening.
what's up, man? How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
Doing well. It's been a busy morning so far.
Yeah. What time is it?
Yep. It is. It is 2:30 my time right now.
Okay.
Where are you in from? They can't hear you, but where are you in from right now?
From Norway, so it's
No way.
10:30 p.m.
2 a.m.
No, 10:30 p.m.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Snap this real quick. Podcast. How's the show been and all this, man? Update me. What's going on?
Uh, well, this is the first podcast that I'm gonna do, so you're the first guest and everything. So but yeah, I think this is gonna be good. It's gonna be exciting. I got you and I got another guy, Neil Samudre, lined up for Thursday, and I also got Brennan Dunn accepting to be on the podcast as well. So that's gonna be exciting.
That'll be big.
Yeah,
And what's your goal with it?
pretty much just build authority and have something that I can use later on as something evergreen. Teaching people, sharing my knowledge and that stuff like that. So, yeah.
And how'd you get that cool ass background? Is that your wallpaper or is that a green screen?
No, that's wallpaper actually.
It looks fake. It's funny.
Yeah, it does.
It does, but it's good.
Yeah,
I have this side recording too.
yeah, cool.
How long do you figure we'll be on here together?
To be honest, I have no idea since this is the first time I'm doing it. So, but I assume that it probably is not going to take more than 4 or 5 minutes approximately. I doubt. I think, yeah, I think about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, I prepared a couple questions, as you know, and so just got to bear with me. Might seem like I'm reading the questions out maybe a little bit, but it's first time, so I'm just gonna try to make it work somehow. All right. Okay. Cool. Let's see. All right. Hey, Jeremy. First, I would just want to say thank you for the coming show. It's awesome to have you here. Um, but for those who may not know who you are, do you mind telling them who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So first, congratulations to you on getting this going and off the ground. I'm super stoked to be here with you and pumped to be super early on in your journey of this show. So for those of you who are not familiar, my name is Jeremy Montoya. I go by @what of Jeremy on social media, like YouTube, all that sort of stuff. I am and have been an entrepreneur my whole life. Kind of before I knew that word, I was selling stuff in second grade. Things progressed in junior high to fireworks, and that did not end very well at all. But I kind of figured out that I had this tact for uh, one, my interest, two, others being interested in those same things, and three, being willing to buy and then sell them things for profit. So I kind of just had this looping story through my childhood constantly of like being interested in something, wanting to get others involved, selling them things in it. And these days, I'm up to a couple things. Ken and I met because of email list building and how to use
Sure.
email and all that sort of stuff as well, which became a huge interest to me out of need and out of struggle. And so for the last 2.5 years or so, what I've been doing is go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry. I think the power went out. I'm
Oh
sorry.
goodness, that is hilarious.
Yeah, the lights went totally out. Okay, just give me 1 second
No
and I'll
problem.
try to straighten this out.
Power went out right in the middle of it, and it just went dark on your side. That's hilarious. It's a good question. Maybe his phone.
I don't know what the hell happened there, but the lamp just went out, so
Hilarious. Well, your Wi-Fi was still on. I told my buddy, I was like,
yeah.
mid-interview, just cut it off, and he goes, "Are you still on Wi-Fi?" I'm like, yeah. I don't know how they work electricity in Norway, so
No, I don't know if the lamp just kind of went out because it was overheating or something, but it's really low, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay.
But
Yeah.
here's the cool thing too. Like for anyone listening to this interview right now, the lights just went out. We had the internet connection stayed on, but like that is the life when you're doing things on your own. Like if you're
Yeah.
this podcast is about email marketing, right?
True. True.
And if you're a solo entrepreneur like me or like Ken, or you're looking to do things on your own, or if you're a business owner and you're looking at email, like part of that lifestyle is problem solving in the moment, right? Because
Yeah.
like sometimes you don't have someone to turn to, and like keeping your composure. So Ken, kudos to you for handling that with grace. But that's really like that's a day in the life. Like these things happen. Like it's not optimal for this window behind me. You can't see it, but the light is behind me. Meaning when I do these interviews, that it creates a lighting issue. So I have a
Mm.
lamp, a ghetto lamp in front of me with a lampshade taken off, but it works perfect, right? Like you
Yeah.
can see me just fine. But you have to kind of piece things together, and that's what I really learned from starting this business journey off sooner in my life than most. And that might not relate to you, but I say that to say this is that like you really got to figure out and handle things on your toes and be ready for things to happen. And that's one of the things that I learned. Um, but I've just been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. Somebody who tries to figure out what are the core principles and things I need to focus on to have the best results in every area of my life. And so, that connected Ken and I, and that's really been my journey, is just finding what works in online business and in business in general, and focusing on those things. And in our reality, I know 101 ways to not do it, and really one way long term for it to work. And that one way, hands down, has been building an email list of targeted people and building a relationship with them, marketing them things that they are actually wanting. So that's kind of my journey summed up.
Hmm.
I'm in Tempe, Arizona, so we're talking from across the globe right now. Um, but yeah, that's been my life up to this point.
Yeah. That's great. You've been through quite a few things, basically. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And these days, I'm continuing to share what's working for me, list building, and other things in my life. I kind of just document these days my health, my story, and how like all aspects are working, because I'm also finding that most people needing help with business in my realm, in my niche, really have deeper things going on, that if we can solve those things, everything else is going to be easier. So I've found that I do people a disservice if I just talk about business with them, but it's
Mm.
also opened that door for that conversation, and that's what I do these days.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. But I'm sure you had some failures throughout the time, and hopefully you learned something from it. But would you mind sharing something of them with us?
Yeah, so one of my another like kind of recurring themes that's been happening in my journey. I'm a pretty ambitious person.
Mm.
Um, I have my faults, hands down. Um, but one of my first businesses, I waited to start with a buddy, and I was working at Apple at the time at one of the retail stores. I was loving life. I was making really good money, better than I ever had before.
Mm.
And my buddy from high school said, "Hey, I want to start a clothing business. You're the only person I'd want to start it with," and kept bugging me and bugging me. And we ended up creating it and launching it, and we did it without an email list. We did it without really understanding target marketing, with no storytelling.
Mm.
And what ended up happening is I ended up carrying most of the weight, whether that
Okay.
was like bottling it up and like carrying the business, or that was actually like doing the work. And so it kind of created this off kilter, this imbalance. And there were times too where he carried the weight versus me, and yada yada. But I just found in that experience that um, you have to be very careful with picking the partners you work with, because they may not
Yeah.
share the same ideals or morals and all of those things. And unfortunately, that didn't teach me enough, because I went and started up my next venture with another best friend, and that didn't work out either. That was actually a podcast, and it was a fun project, but it wasn't a business. And
Okay.
same thing, it's hard to find, like, now if I'm going to work with somebody, that person needs to be obviously and evidently a harder worker than I am, know more than I do, or have more time to do it. And that's very hard to find in,
Hmm.
in my experience. I know there's people out there, but I'm for the most part kind of a one man show. I like
Yeah.
working alongside people, and like not in complete silence and loneliness. But I'd rather here's the way I explain it. I would rather go to the gym with someone than salsa dance. And what I mean by that is, like, when you salsa dance with a partner, that partner has to be there, and they have to
Mm.
show up, and they have to
Yeah.
be as committed as you. And if they don't show up to practice, you kind of don't practice, or you look like an idiot, or you practice with someone else.
True.
Whereas when you go to the gym, you can go together and stretch together and go do your own things. You might need them to spot you and do a workout they're not even doing, or you can even do the same stuff, but you're not reliant on them. Their accountability, they don't need to show up for you to be there. You take the obstacles out of it and you focus towards getting the result, but you get it together. And I have found in most situations, finding a partner for the gym, quote unquote, works out better for me than for salsa dancing. But there are situations still in my life right now where I'm codependent on others to make things happen in other projects I have going on, not necessarily, my business stuff. So that theme has continued to come up and come up and come up. And so I ask myself a series of questions before I start anything new. And that's definitely inside of there. And that failure point of just realizing that it's hard to work with people, but just set it up to where the results are reliant on somebody else. Live in your own frame and do your own thing, but do it with others.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a great analogy, the salsa and gym perfectly.
Definitely. And what about for you, man? Like, you've been doing this entrepreneur stuff for a while as well. Like, what for you so far has been your biggest failure point, or maybe a thing that you had continuing to come up?
It's pretty much just, accepting anything that's coming along your way, simply because out of desperation. So, and that's something you got to learn, is to say no when you can't do everything that comes along.
Sure.
So yeah, you just got to learn to say no. That's what I've learned from that. Yeah.
I agree. Like, there's a time and a place where yes needs to be the word coming out of your mouth at all times. But there's a time and a place on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
As you start to get work under you, where no has to be your favorite word, and that's kind of where I am right now. But there's a time and place for everything, depending your journey, and awareness of where you're at is really the key that's going to determine how fast you get to the results that you're wanting.
Exactly. But what was it that made you want to leave the Apple job for this partner thing with your friend?
I read the 4-Hour Work Week.
Haha, Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit even more backstory. So
Yeah.
I've been there for about 3.5. I was actually in my 4th year. I just turned 4 at Apple, and I was beginning to grow unhappy with the politics that I noticed going on.
Okay.
To give you even more context, when I started working at Apple, it was a company I wanted to retire from. I felt like I found home. And the more involved you get, right, the more you start to figure out things aren't as pretty on the surface as you start to see how the sausage is made. And Apple's a great company. I still love them to death.
Yeah.
It's the human factor, right? It's us humans that kind of ruin everything or that make things complicated. And so there was just politics and situations like that. And I try to shy away from as much of it as possible, but I loved the company. I was, immersed in my job and with the people I work with. So it becomes very, very hard. And I was torn because my clothing business at the time, which was that first business I talked about, wasn't really a business. It wasn't working well. And my buddy hit me up one afternoon. We usually hung out in the evenings. And he said, hey, I want to come over a little bit earlier. I have something I want you to see. And so he pulls up this video, and my friend is super into cars, and he found some like 21 and 22-year-old couple that were both driving Lamborghinis and living this dream life, all the stereotypes we have on like online entrepreneurs and online marketers these days.
Yeah.
And so he wanted my opinion if they're the real deal or not. Like, look at these guys, let me know. You have experience with it, let me know what it looks like. And I couldn't find any faults. And he took off, and I decided to do more research, and I landed on their website, and it was a long-form sales page for an ebook. The ebook, I think, was like $69 at the time, and it was just about their experience. Double-spaced, 70 pages. I sat down and read it in one reading. It probably took me about 50 minutes. And by the time I look up, as I'm done reading this ebook, I'm in the same place in the couch as when he left. I look up. The room is dark now, okay? And it introduced me to a new book, which is 4-Hour Work Week, and it reacquainted me with another book, which was The Secret, which I have really big results from. I have a YouTube video on it on my channel about the results I got from the power of positive thinking or a singular focus. And I had really big results from it, and it took me back to it. So I reread The Secret. I went up and picked the 4-Hour Work Week up like the next day at Barnes & Noble, and I even remember like carrying it with me on my lunch and my 15-minute breaks at Apple, but I took the cover off of it because I didn't want anybody to see me reading it.
Right.
And I would sneak off, and I would do something that I hadn't done my whole career there. I would sneak off and read during my break.
Okay.
And I would read for 20, 25 minutes on my 15-minute break because I couldn't stop. And I was at a crossroads, basically, because I said, you know what, this 4-Hour Work Week stuff is awesome, but I'm not at that point yet. I can apply some of this stuff, but my business isn't going fast. I can't just leave Apple and have this carry me. I was in the middle of trying to buy a house. I just had these things going on, these life complications. But what I did decide was that, you know what, there has to be an in-between. That can't be the only route, is to me to, go solo entrepreneur and launch this information business, or this muse, as Tim would call it. That just wasn't my situation. So I said in my head, it'd be cool to go and work for a startup, go work for someone cool who is starting something new up, who needs some young blood, and I'd be able to learn on my own and learn for them. And I put that intention out there, and literally like 72 hours later, somebody walked in the store and said, they started saying they're looking for someone, and that someone was hands down me. I don't know how the conversation even came up, but they're describing me to me, and I said, hey, I can't talk to you now about this, but we need to connect because I think I'm the person you're looking for. And 2.5 weeks later, that was it. And I went to work for that startup. Again, this is another kind of failure lesson. I learned that I am better working on my own, waiting for others, and the bureaucracy and lack of leadership when there needs to be. That creates a lot of issues for me and for the kind of speed I want to go at. And so that took about 1.5 years. I ended up leaving. But like, that was a huge learn from being at Apple. It wasn't for me in the long run. It provided a lot of opportunities, but I outgrew it. And if you're listening to this right now and you are at a job and maybe this is resonating with you, or if you haven't really revisited yet, I think it's always healthy to really think through what that company is offering you and really, really not forgetting your value.
Yeah.
And it's super easy at these companies for you to be overlooked when you feel like you should be considered. I was overlooked for managerial positions simply because they didn't know that I was wanting it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I felt like I was showing it, but I wasn't at different points in my career. And so people would come in with far less experience that were, in my opinion, not as qualified as me. And they were getting offered huge, huge sums of money to come and work for the company. And they were given amazing jobs and opportunities and that sort of stuff. So if that's you, don't forget your word, and do not. I learned this lesson very on at Apple from a manager, a good friend of mine named Toby. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So you have to be sure that you're always sharing your wins, what you're learning and what you're doing, because if you don't, no one else is going to. So if that's you, definitely think about and reconsider the value that you offer, and also just think about what you're wanting in the next few years, and read the 4-Hour Work Week.
Good. But you mentioned the entrepreneurs, so you talk about the couple that was driving the Lamborghinis and stuff like that. And there's a lot of talk about entrepreneurs and the hustle and stuff like that. How do you look on that? Do you find it? Do you hustle more, or do you find a balance between life and business?
That's an interesting question, because I think it's all based on personality type.
Yeah.
Right? And your skill set and where you're at in life. I think that there's a lot of people who do need to hear the message of hustling and getting more done and doing something with your time. But I think more of us need to hear the message about purpose, because you can hustle all day long and not be going in a direction that's going to serve you for a long period of time. And that's kind of where working smarter or with an intention comes in. But everyone's a little bit different. Right? The lazy people need to be told to work more. The people who are working hard probably need to be told to stop and smell the roses a little bit more. But it depends on where you're at and what kind of season you are in life. So for me, I work a ton. Like, it's almost hard for me to relax. Like, I had 2 days this week where I got things done, and I was like, I sat around for 15 minutes wondering what to do next. So I was like, I was accomplished, and there's always going to be more to do. But like, should I just kind of chill or hang out, or you know what I mean? Like, but I don't even know what that even looks like sometimes. And that's partially because I'm doing what I love. Because I'm doing my own thing. I also work in my mentor's business. I invest about 30 hours a week with him, and that's been a huge payoff for me, both from working on that team and then also just seeing what the inside of a business, the kind of business I'm trying to run, looks like, right? That's already there. So, I do spend 90 to 110 hours sometimes a week working, but it's stuff doing I love. It's stuff that I feel is helping the world. But that makes everything else a little bit hard, right? Like, I'm a single guy, right? And you have a family. That like makes it a little bit harder. But it's, you know what I mean? Like you just have to know where you're at and have that own awareness, because there's nothing worse towards taking huge steps towards something that may not serve you in the long run. But that shouldn't keep you at the same time from taking steps and figuring things out.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Let's head into some email marketing and just let's see. how, well, you've been in business a few years now, so could you take us back to when you first started out with email marketing?
Yeah, the first email list I was building was for my clothing line. It was called Royal Tendency. I think we got about 100, 160 people on that were like friends and family, but we weren't
Okay.
using it. And we weren't doing it right. So when I say we weren't doing it right, we were using like MailChimp, cartoon-looking newsletters. We
Mm.
were only talking about the shirts, yada yada. And so like email marketing is awesome, but like knowing how to use it is even better. And so like I think what would serve the listeners of this even more is talking about what that mistake looked like and how I would have done it different.
Mm. Yeah.
In all of the projects I've had so far that haven't gotten the results I've wanted, I look back at what we could have done better. And like list building is one of them. Like having an audience, capturing an audience. But even more so is having something compelling that makes that audience want to join and stay around. Because then hopefully they can buy,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
Or getting a customer, getting a buyer and turning them into a customer through this. And that thing is storytelling. That thing is understanding like what your message is and what that means to the world and who that message means something to. And when we were making our clothes, we were thinking about, okay, like, do we show people like how to iron this, how to wash it, like just dumb things.
Mm.
And what we should have been doing was showing us and our story. Me and my partner who were running it, we're a fun group of guys to be around. We have a great time. We would go on adventures. Like we should have been documenting all of that
Yep.
and using that like the documenting of this clothing line being founded and being created because that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That has ups and downs and that has drama. And I know now from the way I'm storytelling that it also has accountability because you're telling the
Yep.
world you're going to do something. You're not just accountable to your partner, or to your mom and dad, or whoever. You're accountable to the world, right? You're
Mm.
accountable to these imaginary people online who are becoming real people, or hopefully become real people. So we had an email list. We didn't know what we were doing with the storytelling, and I think we would have had a ton more fun just showing that stuff
Yep.
and showing that day to day. And the awesome thing is we were already doing it, so it's actually capitalizing in a passive way of sorts on the time we're putting in. Now it takes time to edit and publish and all of that, believe me. But
Yeah.
that storytelling was a huge, huge piece of the email marketing that we were missing in our marketing in general. And if we really had just taken a look at us being enough, we could have had some fun with it. Because oftentimes when you're starting a business, or you're starting anything else, you don't feel like you're enough just yet. But I can tell you right now, those listening, that you are enough. All you have to do is go and show the world. And what's awesome about that is that you don't need to be an expert or some celebrity or somebody who's figured it all out. As long as you're just willing to be transparent and vulnerable and share what's happening as it's happening, it puts you in this zone, in this own category that really, in my opinion, makes you special from most other people and will make you something people are compelled to follow and to join along with.
Mm. Yeah. Exactly. Um, how would you say? You said you had 160 on that first list, but what's the highest that you have had on some of your lists of subscribers? I mean,
Yeah. In like, I do a lot of sub lists. I've
yeah.
had ones that are like, 700 or so, but for very, very niche things, like
Mm.
an affiliate product for email marketing or for like coaching and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I try to be very segmented in what I do, and so that all spans at different times.
Mm.
One of the things I have learned over and over as well is that you don't need a huge list.
Yeah.
I launched my
True.
first product with about 230 subscribers or so at the time for the list that I was building. And I launched, it was a coaching program, and I did my first $5,000 in revenue. And
Cool.
a lot of that came from having an email list as well, but it also came from a little show that I was doing every evening on Periscope.
Mm.
And like what that taught me about live streaming in that moment was that like people who find you on live streaming and are showing up daily, they they trust and respect you a lot faster. People will
Yeah.
talk about the three things: know, like, and trust. But I know a lot of people that I like that I wouldn't trust with my money or that I would never give a dollar to.
Mm.
But people who I have trust with and that I respect, I'd give them my money without them even explaining anymore to me. And I found that with live streaming, people could come and show up and see that I'm the real deal. And yes, I look young and all of this stuff, and I curse, and I'm just me.
Mm.
But they come and like the right people align with it, and they want to buy, and they want to buy fast. And so like that was a huge lesson in that during that standpoint as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you found it harder to, well, when you're building your list, is it at some point where things start to get easier building your list? I mean,
A little bit, a
uh,
little bit. I mean,
yeah.
it's getting your first subscriber, right? It's just as hard as getting your first 100.
Yeah.
like taking that first step, right? And getting your first 100 is going to feel like getting your first 1,000. But as you go, your growth is going to grow exponentially with you.
Mm-hmm.
It I don't know if it gets easier, but I think you get better.
Yeah.
And the other X factor here is if you are content marketing, which you don't need to be, but if you are content marketing or like on YouTube or on live streaming or Facebook, whatever you're doing is your content has time to mature. So two things happen. You get found by the search engine a little bit more on a
Mm-hmm.
couple of your things, a couple of your posts, not on all of it, and then you start getting better.
Mm.
Right? Like people always say, like, I want to make a viral video or those sort of things. And it's like, you can't make a viral video. It's luck, but you can create the environment for luck to be in. That means you're taking action. That means you're actually in the game. That means you're like layering on things that you've learned over time that you see in a lot of viral things. So it's about that environment versus anything that's going to make anything successful. So, I don't know if I answered that question completely. However, if you can find that environment, like that where you thrive in or where your content thrives in, and you give it time to mature, you start to see, an influx in that over time because you make something once, and yes, that blog post could take you 5 or 6 hours. If you have that time to invest and there's a time and place for it, that can go to work for you and be passive for you. But it does take a lot of time, and getting sucked into the content creation is one of the huge, failure points I see happening more and more these days too.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you don't need content marketing or content. What do you mean by that?
I don't. Great question. I just mean like you don't need to be doing what your favorite guru is doing.
Yeah.
Right? If you see X person doing long form blog posts, it doesn't mean you need to. Or if you see somebody like I started video blogging recently, I made that decision because of a couple things, but I didn't need to be doing that because the reality is there are other ways. Like maybe you have a ton of money. Like, why mess around with the free stuff when you have money? Like, do it, but like hire others and invest in that. Like, that would be a time if you have your market drilled down and you have money where you invest in paid traffic. But I wouldn't recommend that to the average person hiring me for coaching because they don't have those things dialed in. So let's get those things dialed in first, and then we can do the fun stuff, right? Then we can do the paid ads and the things that you see your favorite guru or expert doing. But to me, you can get just as far, if not further, by creating a short landing page offering something of value.
Yeah.
Even if it's just daily or weekly tips or strategies or what you learned, you can go a lot further with that with your amount of time. Because the reality is most people who go into content marketing, and this is just the majority, this may not be who's listening to this right now, but the majority of those people need to make money right now, and content marketing does not make you money right now. It brings you leads and money in the future.
Yeah.
So there's a balance. So it's maybe 80-20. Nope, come here, buddy. Come here. It just all depends on like where you're at and like what your situation is. Everyone's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So you have to play the card needed right now. So most people who hire me, I tell to go and get clients. I tell to go and get people paying them on a monthly recurring basis. We've talked about this at length together, Ken. Like it brings you money right now, and it gives you material to start making content on. Whereas most people just start making content about things that they aren't necessarily in tune or aware of just yet, but are learning, and there's just a better way to be going about that.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, how's your list doing today? The last one you started.
Yeah, so provide a little bit of story
Yeah.
background. I've been list building for about a year and a half. It was mostly slow because 70 to 80, 85% of the time I was focusing on getting clients and not the content and that sort of stuff as I got my laser focus. But what I started doing is I started building a new email list to kind of reset my personal brand and what I do. I've been talking about email list building and how to use an email list for about the last year, and that's been fun. I've learned a ton. But I'm finding there are other areas of my life I'm also just as passionate, if not more, than business. How I'm doing my health, what I'm doing in my personal life, even in like my dating life and my relationships and my network. I'm doing a lot of things there that a lot of people are asking me about, or when I chat with them, I come to life about because I super enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy the testing and the trying and the failing and all of it. And so I kind of started this new hypothesis of I want to share more of that. If business is the thing people want me to talk about, I want to talk about that. But I also want to talk about time and productivity and not just be this like super narrow, drilled down thing. There's advantages and disadvantages to both routes I'm telling you guys about here. But from what I've learned and for who I want to be in the world and online and in real life, right? What's going to align with my personality in my life is just sharing what I'm doing. Because, and like I think about it too, like you got to think about the areas of your life that maybe a reporter would be like chomping at the bit to be able to document. And people listening right now, they may not think, like, you might not be thinking my life isn't that interesting. But most stories in the news aren't interesting. They just spin them to make them compelling. And I'm not saying to be sensational or to use hyperbole or any of those things. But what I am saying is, what are you doing right now? Or here's a question I ask myself. What am I doing right now that I could use as, like, an interesting story or an interesting thing? Or what do my market want to learn? And so I went from helping everybody with list building, and I kind of started focusing on, like, middle-aged women at one point, because they were hiring me and paying me no questions asked, and continuing to, and getting results and taking action. But I look at the areas that I'm focused on, the groups I'm around right now in my life, and a lot of those are 20 to 30-year-old guys. And so that's who I am. That's who I kind of want to talk to and with. And so nowadays, my email list is like 102 or 103. Because what I did is I built an email list of 100 subscribers from scratch. And what that looked like is I text and I emailed or a Facebook message my entire network and asked them to join. Most of those people weren't on any list I've ever had. And so now I'm going and getting the support of my friends and family and asking them to come with me on this journey. And all I'm doing is documenting it and sharing it. And over time, I'm going to have data on what people are most interested in. And I get to do that. And here's my goal. Because that leaves out a lot of context when you don't share your goal. So I always, like, the questions I would ask is, what's your number one goal and why? My number one goal is to wake up in the morning and just be Jeremy, and that bring in enough revenue where I can go and do my thing, whether that's starting new businesses or, like, going on vacation for a week. And so what that means is learning out loud or documenting and sharing my journey. And so, I've done the whole give advice to people for about a year and a half, and I'm happy to do that on a paid basis, but it's not the thing I want to be driving my entire day. I don't want for my livelihood to be based on me being an expert on one very, very specific topic. And there's something for everyone. So if you're listening to this, you can listen and tune it out, or you can listen and think about what it means to you. But this is just my own experience. I want to wake up and be me. And the reason that is because I see people doing it already. I see it as a possibility. And I have learned over the last year or two from working with clients, dozens of coaching students, right, and being in front of thousands of people, that I'm doing them a disservice by not sharing these other areas. Because if I just talk about business, you're going to make a lot of money, and you're still not going to be happy. Whereas if I show you these life principles and fundamentals that I've learned or I've come to understand and are applying actively and am discovering, then I feel like we can, we can become more well-rounded, and we can ask the questions that really matter and really conquer things that matter in our lives.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell me, are you a morning person, or do you like to sleep in?
Man, that depends, dude. Like, I've really, it's funny, like, I've really circled around that question the last, like, month or two, because I kind of go in and out of it. As an entrepreneur, like, as somebody who has a day job, you kind of have to be a morning person. Like, being a night person is an option, but maybe on weekends, right? But as an entrepreneur and someone who's doing it on your own, the game changes a little bit. You can sleep until 11 or 12 or 3 if you want. There are consequences. There are pros and there are upsides and downsides. Because, like, sometimes for me, I'm not a morning person or a night person. Here's what I am. I'm a naps person.
A naps person. So you take naps.
So I take naps. I do. About 3 to 4 days out of the week, I'm taking a nap. Three or 4 days out of 7, I'm taking a nap. Maybe 2. It just all depends on the day. It all depends on how I'm feeling. So one of the things I do is I use an app called Toggle, and I'm measuring every single second of my day. Like, I can literally swipe over to my computer, my timer, and see that we have spent 32 minutes and 28 seconds here together chatting so far. So that's when I turn the timer on for this. So at the end of the day, week, month, and year, I run a report now. So I'm getting to the point where it'll be yearly. I run a report because, to me, time is more important than money. You can have all the money in the world, no time to spend it. You're going to be just as unhappy as everybody else.
Yeah.
So I run a timer at all times. And one of the things I monitor, amongst others, is my rest. And so I can see that I got 4.5 hours of rest on last week. So I'm going to end up having a couple naps or needing more rest today, or I'm going to have to power through it. Today I got 8 hours, so I feel really good. It's probably one of my most productive Mondays of the year. And I've had some productive Mondays, but some Mondays I wake up, I do my morning meeting, and I go back to bed because that's how I feel, right? Because if I took a nap right now, I would have had to wake up at 2:30 my time, or I would have missed this call with you, which I committed to, which I don't like doing. It can happen sometimes, but I don't like doing that because I want to respect others' time the way I want my time respected. So I say all that to say this: I have a timer running at all times.
There we go again.
And the timer just went off for Ken's light to turn
One
off.
second.
Keep jamming while I was getting this all figured out. So I run a timer and I keep that going so that I know where all my time is going. So I'm not a morning person unless I'm up in the morning. I'm not a night person unless I'm still up at night, but I am a nap person. So, and I'll share this with Ken when he comes back on when you guys can see him again. But I try to average 8 hours of rest, and in November I hit that perfectly. So it just all depends on where you're at. So I was sharing right now that I try to get 8 hours of rest over a 24-hour period on average.
Thank you for taking over the show, by the way.
I got you. And in November, I average exactly 8 hours of rest on the dot for that 30-day period. December might be different, right? January might be different, but rest is super important to me. I look at days where I have 10, 11, 12 hours sometimes, and I think, dude, you're a lazy ass. Like, do something. But I saw the night before, I got 4 hours of rest, and I also see that all the plates are still spinning, right? So not a morning or night person. When I'm up, I'm ready and take naps.
Okay, cool. Let's go into a little bit more of the list building part. You mentioned something about when you started out the new list here, you were like inviting friends and family, people on Facebook, stuff like that. So is it hard to start from scratch building your list?
It is. Most people, when they think about building an email list or starting an email list, they start thinking about content upgrades. They think about pop-ups. They think about landing pages. They think about funnels. They think about all of these things that keep them from going and getting subscribers.
Yeah, exactly.
And no two, I'm talking to the 80%. I'm talking to the 80% of people who are either in their first 100 or haven't started yet. The 20% of people who have actually made it to maybe 1,000 and beyond. Okay, that's the exception though. The reason I went that route of getting my first 100 subscribers by text and by Facebook and all those things is because that is a way I could and you can get more subscribers right now. And I wanted to prove to myself that I was humble enough and vulnerable enough to go out and ask for help, to go out and ask for people to go and support me. When I started doing this 2 years ago, I felt like I needed to have a YouTube show and I needed to have my podcast and my blog and all that needed to look dialed in and pretty good to go. And what I've learned is that that's just not the case, because there's also this minimum viable route that you can go, or use pieces of that mindset to stop you from really delaying your success. By focusing, if you're under 100 subscribers, on pop-ups and landing pages and newsletters and all of those things, you're just doing things to help you feel busy. And you aren't getting progress. If you're trying to build an email list, the name of the game is getting subscribers. So, how bad do you want it? Do you want to feel like an online marketer and feel like an entrepreneur and go and start getting lead pages and doing all the pretty things that you see your favorite expert doing? Or do you want to, are you actually in the game? And that's what I asked myself. And I learned this from my mentor, Brian Harris. We actually teach this in one of our courses at Video Fruit. And we teach like this method. And I also wanted to show the people that I'm leading and helping with that I'm not too proud to do the same thing. I'm not too big for it. So if you're listening to this right now and under 100 subscribers, or maybe you haven't started building an email list yet, there's a lot of advantages to going and getting the people around you to support you. You might feel like they don't want to support you, but they do. It's just all about how you ask them and how you go about it. And it also prevents you from having to become focused on what your topic is going to be. So instead of saying, I'm going to talk about how to garden, or I'm going to talk about how to fly a kite, I'm building an email list around the topic of my journey and me finding my purpose in my journey. I'd love to have you in. Game. And just sending that text 100 times, I would be surprised if you didn't get 80 subscribers or 90 subscribers by sending that one text out. It should take you about 7 days if you go that route. And like, so if you're listening to this and you don't have an email list, or if it isn't growing, like, do you want more subscribers, or are you just saying you do? And if you do, like, stop right now, pick up your phone and text the last 5 people you've messaged and ask them if they're on your list, or if they even know you're building an email list. And that will be a little litmus test that will show you in the moment how serious you are about it. And if you are serious, get them on your list. Ask them for their email. Don't send them to MailChimp or send them to a form. Ask them for their best email right then and there. Write it down, and you'll have more subscribers immediately.
Great tip. For those who start building email list, at the beginning they probably feel very motivated, but as soon as they see how hard it is, they get discouraged and stop. What advice would we give to them, that those who quit?
Yeah, so there's two big failure points that I'm aware of when it comes to building an email list. The first is getting your first 100 subscribers, and the second is getting your 1,000.
Mm.
These two major drop-off points that people don't make it to. They never make it to 100, and when they make it to 100, they don't end up making it to 1,000. In the process of getting 100, the way that I just mentioned, the way that I just did, I've come to appreciate those people a ton more.
Mm.
They aren't just people who found me.
No.
And I think that motivation is what should keep people going more. Is that they have to go out and hustle for that thing. Some people are just given a list. They have luck, or a post goes by, like SEO gets crazy on it, or like they have a buddy, but that's the exception. That's not the standard. And working hard for anything, you will appreciate it more. So for those who aren't motivated by it, you probably don't have a why or a purpose. So one of the things that I do is I keep my goal front and center, whether it's alarms on my phone or calendar appointments, or like a sticky note on my monitor or in front of me or on the wall or above the ceiling when I wake up, so it's the first thing you see, or the last thing I see before I go to bed and close my eyes. There are a lot of ways of doing it, but chances are you don't, if you're not motivated right now by building your list, chances are you don't have a goal that you could see right now as you're listening to this, and so you need to change that. And secondly, you don't have a reason why. Getting an email list is cool and fine and dandy, but why do you want it? Like for me, I want to have a business fund of $60,000 or more for my godson. He can choose to go to college with it, or he can go and invest it in his own business once he graduates high school. Like that's one of them. I want to be able to travel the world wherever, whenever, right? And like be on my own. For you, Ken, it might be like your family, or like proving to yourself, or something else. For everyone, it's a little bit different, and there's no right or wrong answer. You just have to know why. I'm curious to hear from you. I think we've chatted about this at length before, but what's your reason why for having an email list and doing all this stuff?
Yeah, and it's like you mentioned, having time with family, being able to be a bit more spontaneous and do stuff that you want to right then and there, basically.
Yeah, so for you, if you don't have those things defined yet and you're listening to this, you really need to take a pause and reflect on what that is. You never have the motivation for a long period of time. You'll listen to this and feel super motivated because it sounds doable, but you'll go and you have one roadblock, or the phone will ring, or Twitter will go off, or the kid will be crying. Something will happen, and you won't continue. So have that reason why, and have it compelling. Is it a trip with your family? Is it for your family? Is it for your health? Or is it maybe just to prove that you can do it? We all have something different. Make sure you have that defined and your goal out in your line of sight.
Yeah, and probably doesn't hurt if it's specific either.
The more specific, the better, but it doesn't have to be. Just have a start, because it can change over time too.
Yeah, of course.
It can get refined, right? Like sometimes, like I'll say that, and we'll get a comment from this in a few months or whenever, and someone's like, "Okay, well I did that, but then things change."
Yeah.
Well, we have to be flexible. Nothing is for certain besides death and taxes. So exactly. So be flexible, be moldable with all of it.
Yeah, things change all the time. Would you recommend using Facebook ads or any other paid ads to grow your list?
You have a ton of money.
Yeah.
And you're at that stage, if you don't have 100 subscribers yet, I wouldn't. If you don't have 1,000 subscribers yet, I probably wouldn't. But that might be your leverage, right? My leverage is the time and tenacity to pick up my phone and actually text people, right? To show my ass and to like really say, hey, I'm going to show you guys everything. So like you want in, right? Be willing to do it. For your leverage, though, listen to this, might be money, or it might be time. Everyone's is a little bit different, but you have to know what that is. Now, if you're looking for an easy out and you want an email list, send me $2,000. I'll help you get a list right now. Send Ken $2,000. I'll help you get a list overnight. But it's not sustainable. You typically won't appreciate it. So I think there's something to be said for the process. And I think it's also in the process that gets overlooked, where we find ourselves and we find the people who are really meant to serve. So go through the process, do the hard work, then figure out, SEO and YouTube and paid traffic and all that. But there's a time and a place. There's probably a few marketers listening to this right now or in the future who are saying, that kid's dumb. And I'm completely okay with that. It's just they are the exception, right? The gurus who you find who can go into a new market and take it by storm, they're the exception. They have tons of money and tons of experience. You have to find what your leverage is and what your exception is. For me, a lot of my leverage and my exception was that my mom died a few years back. And like I did something positive with it, or I stand to do something positive before it, And so like that's part of my leverage and my motivation that keeps me going. Does it always keep me going? No. But when I stop and think about things and reflect, it's like, okay, dude, like you did good work, like keep it going. Um, a lot of it was because I was overweight when I was younger. So I have a chip on my shoulder. A lot of it was I have a lack of dating experience because I was overweight and didn't have a lot of confidence when I was younger. So I had to compensate. So all those things add up to make me me. You have to figure out what makes you you. Maybe it's a lot of money. Maybe you have both parents. Maybe you never had any parents. Maybe you had 18 kids. Whatever it is for you, find that and use it as your motivation. A lot of time it's bad things, but you got to, figure out a way to spin it and to make it yours and to own it. Use it as that thing that really boosts you and keeps you going.
Okay, cool.
But I can't and I won't go and make your mother sick so that you can lose her. I won't go and force feed you freaking hot dogs so you become fat and you have some leverage. I will not make you go and have 18 kids. What you have to do is take a quick second in your own situation and figure out what that is for you. It might not happen right this instant. It might take a little while, but when you go looking for it, that thing will come and smack you across the face at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. What would you say is more important though? Is it quality or quantity in your list?
Depends on where you're at and what season.
Yeah.
A big objection that I constantly hear when I tell about my approach or my new approach with starting an email list and getting your first 100 is, well, these people aren't going to buy from me, Jeremy. These people aren't customers or like my target audience. And that doesn't matter right now. What matters right now is momentum, right? The quantity.
Okay.
And even so to say, there's an argument for both sides. That quality is people or supporters. They may never give you a dime, but maybe you run into Jim at the coffee shop or at church, and Jim gives you a piece of feedback that forever changes your trajectory or that motivates you again to keep on going because Jim's actually reading your stuff. There's doing that method allows for serendipity to happen, and I think serendipity is one of the best things that you can have happen when you're doing something that you love.
Okay, good answer. But you have started a couple of different lists in different niches that you're targeting. Has there been any different challenges as to who you're targeting and stuff like that?
Has there been? There's definitely always different challenges. I think the biggest challenge is me in my experience.
Okay.
Right? Like the biggest challenge I've identified in anything I've done and which my students do, the people I work with, is doing the right things in the right order. And that's really what we're talking about here if you really want to find a thread from this whole conversation. Is like doing the right things in the right order will shave decades off of your journey to success. So many people have their hands in buckets that they don't need to have their hands in. They're starting to build their list and they're thinking about their YouTube show. They get 100 subscribers and they're thinking about what it's going to be like to make 6 figures. Or they're starting their list and they're worried about their WordPress site or like lead pages or pop-ups and all these things. When there's a time and place for all of that. And just wait for that time and place and do what you have to do right now. It wasn't fun every day to sit in front of my computer and beat myself up and text people. But at about 70, I started saying, you know what, screw it, let them tell me no. Let me try to find a no because I couldn't, okay? Let me try to find a no. And so I'd send 20 or so texts off one day a week because I hadn't been doing it all week, and then my list would grow exponentially. That isn't easy, but it gets you results. It's doing the right things in the right order. You get to your first 100, now your focus becomes 1,000. Nothing else. When you get to 1,000, for most people, the 80%, then you focus on validating your first small product. But there is a 20% of people who you can sell a product without an email list, guys. That's all possible. But that might not be the best route for you. That might just be some shiny thing, the shiny next thing you're going after, when instead you need to focus on that dull, not so shiny, not so fun thing in order to get you to that step. You gotta really go through the process.
Exactly. Yeah. What tools would you recommend for using or for building a list?
It's kind of weird, but I'd recommend using Toggle to manage your time, right? Like it's more of a lifestyle when you're building an email list in a business, right? I could tell you all day that I use ConvertKit for my email list to host it, that I use Bluehost for my WordPress site, or that I use Lead Pages or Opt-in Monster or this you want to talk about tools? I'm doing a podcast, okay? And I have a $400 microphone right here that I'm showing the camera that I'm not using because I didn't have enough time to get it all plugged in. And I use my headphones for everything. And it sounds like you wouldn't know the difference, okay?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't. And I could have the best tools in the world, but using them is where it actually comes in. So if you really want to build an email list, track your time. See where your time is going. 1, you'll be shocked. 2, you'll be appalled. 3, you'll start taking action. So like use Toggle for your time. I'm a big fan of Google Documents. All these
Yep.
things have nothing to do with list building on the surface, right? But they have everything to do with it.
Yep.
I use Evernote for all of my ideas. Um, like it's the little things. But if you really want to know, like use a Moleskine notebook or a piece of paper. That's what I got my first 100 on. Um, so other than that, I love ConvertKit. I'm a big fan of lead pages. Those are things I use on a daily basis. The other one I'm big on right now, I did a video on this as well, and they actually made a case study out of me. Is this? I'm holding up a best self journal. My buddy
Okay.
Jose, who's working right here next to me, he got on this train first, and now I swear every one of my friends has one of these, or it's in the mailbox, or they're waiting to set their goals. Um, Using this to manage my day and using a calendar religiously, because that's the only word that can sum up how religious I am about my time. It's about the only thing I'm religious about. Using my best self journal and a calendar has been game changing, and then just tracking the time.
Yeah.
What about for you, man? I'm curious to hear what are your tools, what are your tricks?
Uh, I don't have a smart answer like you, like Toggle or something like that. But no, I use Drip. Pretty much.
How you liking that?
I love it. I've been through a couple of. I've been through Campaign Monitor. I've been through Mailchimp. Yeah.
Stay away from Mailchimp, guys.
Yeah,
It's free, but stay away.
and I've been through ConvertKit as well. But I fell back on Drip because it is simple to use, yet you can get really advanced with it if you want to.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I like that, having those both options. Yeah. All right. I think it's time we start wrapping things up. But do you have any last tips on email marketing for other people out there?
If I have any last tips, I'm recording this a little bit and get the blog stuff up. If I have any last tips on building an email list, it's doing the right things in the right order. There's nothing that will subtract more time from your success than that alone.
Mm.
So if you're wanting to build an email list, do the right things in the right order. But more than anything else, know your goal and have it in your line of sight. That way you can actually act with some intention. Because you might find that list building isn't the thing for you. You might find that changing your diet, if that, you know what I mean? Like, look at what that thing is for you, the number one goal in your life,
Mm.
and have it in your line of sight, and just make sure you're doing the right things in the right order. So if you're building a list and you're under 100, that means finding out the reason why you want to build your email list. Maybe it's to take your family on vacation. Maybe it's like you want to have a college fund for your kids or for your godson like me, or you want a car. There's no right or wrong there. Know that reason and have it in your line of sight. So if you're under 100, your goal is now to get your first 100 subscribers. And if you're under 1,000, your goal is to get 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways inside of that you can do it, but you got to have that, and you got to have it kind of listed out somewhere that you can constantly see it. Because if you don't, the world will creep in and it will take over your time.
Mm. If you can recommend one book or one tool that people should check out, use, or what would that be?
Yeah, Best Self Journal. I think jeremymontoya.me/best self. If not, I'll make that. You can go and get that, or bestselfjournal.com, I think, or bestself.co. Get yourself a Best Self Journal. It's been a game changer for me. Not sure if I'll always use it, but for goal setting and for tackling all that, it kind of has like a little course built in and everything. If you don't have a way to track your goals right now, or something you're checking in with daily, I highly recommend checking out that, or a tool like that to keep you accountable and to keep that going.
Awesome. And if people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love if you want to see more of what I'm doing. Because, like, if you're skeptical at this point at all, or if you want to see more, like if you're listening, what I look like or how all this shook out, my YouTube channel is probably the best page right now. You
Okay.
probably were expecting me to say list or something like that. Just right, like just search "What Up Jeremy" right now, and you can see it. Because I'm not here to convince anybody. That's why I make content the way I do these days. And if you like that, then there'll be links and other things waiting there for you to go and check out. Should you think that you found the real deal, and you can go and learn more.
Okay. And last thing, what do you got planned for the next 6 months?
The next 6 months, one, growing that email list from 100 to 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So what that looks like is writing 250 words a day and
Okay.
publishing those words on Fridays, or documenting like this, like I have a little video.
Yep.
Like this could end up being a video that I share to my newsletter list first. So finding a way to document daily, sharing at least once a week, and using that first 100 to get to my first 1,000. what that looks like beyond there, I have an idea about, but it's just going to distract me. So I'm just super focused on that 1,000.
Yeah.
I also own and run a podcast agency. It's fallen to the wayside a little bit, but we're picking things back up, me and a buddy of mine, and going to focus on getting a few more clients and making that stuff continue to jam as well, because we have the processes, the systems, and the right people. So no reason why we shouldn't be using it. So that's my next 6 months.
Okay, cool. Well, I want to say thank you for coming to show and sharing everything with us. And we can't see what you got in store for next.
Anytime. And anyone listening to this, I would love to connect with you guys. So hit me up on YouTube or Twitter and say hi, and love to stay connected. Thanks,
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thanks. Great.
Good job, dude. How'd that feel?
Not too bad actually. Probably could have got a little bit better, but being the first time and all, I think it went pretty well. What do you think?
I liked it.
Yep.
For the people who might see this in the future on a J today, what do you want to tell them about the show or about what you're working on?
Basically, it's I'm trying to. Well, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and a few of them are on email marketing as well. But I hope that this is kind of different because I'm trying to go into a specific topic on each guest. So with you, we're trying to talk about list building. With Neil Samudra that I'm doing on Thursday, we're trying to go into copywriting. And with Brennan, I want to do a lot of personalization and segmentation because that's what he's good at. So I'm trying to pick out a few things that we talk about specifically with these persons because they're good at what they do. So I hope that kind of makes things a little bit different from every other podcast on email marketing. So, but we'll see. And also there will be people from the States like you and others, but also we'll have Norwegian people because I'm going to try to, I'm focusing on Norwegian market right now. So naturally I will have some Norwegian people talking Norwegian. So that probably won't be too informative for some people, but it's going to be a lot of international people as well. So it's going to be good.
And are you going to have this transcribed, like my episode transcribed, so Norwegian people can hear it?
I will try to do that actually. With the English versions, I'm going to try to get them transcribed actually.
Could be good.
Yeah.
Could be good.
Awesome.
Awesome, dude. Well, I super appreciate inviting me on. Is there anything else or anything you can think of that I can do for you?
No, just share it when it comes out, I guess. I don't know yet when it will come out. I think I just need to get through this process a few times before I feel comfortable for letting something out. Probably should have a couple more shows as well, just so I have, maybe somewhere around 5 shows to launch with. So we'll see. But I'll keep you posted definitely, and hopefully sometime. Maybe on the New Year, probably. Yeah,
Posted, dude.
I will.
Stuff, and looking forward to seeing or hearing the end product.
Yeah, so do I.
Let me know if anything else comes up, and we'll be in touch. All right.
Okay, we will. Thanks. Bye.